Chapter 33. I must have stared at those words for an hour before I could force my fingers to enter a reply. He was there, right before me. But I was terrified if I moved too quickly, I would startle him and he'd be gone again. Carefully, I selected my words. I read it through several times before pushing send. How are you? The words were classic, simple, and reeked of one very specific meaning. I meant to convey and knew he would understand. I wasn't simply asking, how are you? I was saying, hello, my dearest friend, why did you ever leave me? All while raising the white flag and releasing the doves. The wrong word right now and he would be gone again. I pushed send and held my breath. I didn't have to wait long for an answer, but the next 5 minutes felt like I had my neck stretched into the guillotine, and I was waiting for Hosea to kill me or free me. I still believed what was said to me 10 years ago had not been him. I refused to believe it, and now I finally had my chance to determine if I had been delusional for 10 years or if I had been right. His response came through loud and clear and immediate. Why did you cut me off? Gasping, I smiled. I cupped my hands to my mouth and let the tears flow. After almost 11 years, I was right. I sat in my chair, hugging myself, and I sobbed, allowing myself that moment. It was the one question that proved everything I needed, and for the first time in 10 years, I knew. I was right. It wasn't him, I gasped and sobbed. It had never been him. The tears flowed, and I shook in my chair as sweet relief washed over me. I glanced up at the monitor. I needed to think. I needed time to think. I was married. I couldn't rush into this without a plan. I was married. I couldn't throw myself at him. I needed to proceed with caution. Whatever Richard asked to see, he would have to be allowed to see. But I needed answers. I needed closure. And from the looks of things, why did you cut me off? He also had lived the 10 years without answers or closure. This would take some thought. What would I say? Oh, what would I say? After several moments, I typed the one answer that would buy me the time I needed and keep him there. Just a little bit longer while I got my head together. We need to talk. Facebook was a treasure that day. With my finding Hosea, I was inspired to look for the rest of the gang. I found 3 of them, including Elena. In one day, I had located 4 of the 7 and my Hosea. I was on cloud 9 and then some. The front door opened and I turned. Richard looked miserable. I couldn't stop grinning. He took off his coat, dropped it over the arm of the couch, and laid down to take a nap until bedtime, as he did every afternoon. He dropped his arm on his face to shield the overhead light from his eyes. What'd you do today? He asked in that tone filled with passive-aggressive condescension. I didn't care. Not that day. I found Elena, he grunted. And Hosea. I waited. He looked out from under his arm. The look of horror there stunned me stupid, but it was nothing compared to what he said next. Goodbye, Elizabeth. He would have done better than to have slapped me. Excuse you? He sat up. You're leaving me, so what? Well, you've been looking for him for 10 years. You found him. Now you're gonna run. I am not leaving you. I was panicking. I never said I was leaving. I said I found my friend. Why was I panicking? Well, why else would you go looking for 10 years if not to fuck him? To find out what happened! I was getting angry. I was scared. To get closure! And he's my friend! He was my best friend! You're leaving me, he said. He stood and stomped off to the bedroom. I listened to him swearing while he slammed drawers, kicked the wall, and proceeded with his adult-sized tantrum. I went to the kitchen and started dinner. Something about his goodbye scared me. I lay in bed, replaying Richard's words in my head. Goodbye, Elizabeth. Richard snored soundly beside me. It was nearing 4 a.m. and I wasn't sleeping. Not this night. I was feeling relief. Just relief. Not excitement or lust. Not love or worry. Okay, yes, worry. But relief. Sweet, merciful relief. I had finally found my friend, who I had lost only to be greeted with the one word I hated most in the spoken language. Bye. I hate the word goodbye and every variant of it. Such an ugly, vile word. It means finality, doom, the end. To me, it meant never again. Bye was the nevermore spoken by Poe's raven. I hate the word bye. After 10 years, I found my friend, and the first thing that dipshit Richard said to me was bye. The amount of abandonment and loss I felt. I rubbed the tears from my eyes. Nothing could equate to the depth of insecurity I was feeling. I needed reassurance, support, comfort. Instead, I was told the one thing that confirmed I was still alone. In the end, people always leave you. I had made it clear to Richard that I had found Hosea. I had no expectations, no plans, no hopes or dreams. I didn't even think it was Hosea. I didn't even know if Hosea was the same. Was I the same? I tried to think back to all that had happened to me since summer of '99 and shook my head. Don't think of that. The monsters I hadn't faced lurked there still. I thought of that summer instead and the heartache, the hell I endured, what he must have endured, thinking I had him cut off, thinking I had cut him off. I was married. This limited me in what I could say. He may be married. We couldn't run to each other like I wanted. I looked at Richard sleeping beside me. After 10 years, I had a lot to say, a lot of things that needed to be said. Could I speak to Hosea and not tell him what secrets I harbored all those years? More importantly, could I live the rest of my life never speaking those words aloud? Could I live with any more regret? I felt the weight on my chest clamp down. It was diamond gold all over again. That was the source of my pain, not saying what needed to be said. The words had festered inside of me for 10 years, married or not. There were things I had to say, if only this once. Once I made the mistake of not speaking my mind. It was a mistake that led to the hardest and longest lesson of my life. Life is short. Be brave. Be bold. Be blunt. No regrets. To thine own self be true. There was no closure. Things needed to be said. My loyalty, commitment, my marriage, it would survive this. I would not jeopardize it, but there were some things left undone. I would allow myself this time to say what needed to be said, just this once, and then I would nurture my friendship and proceed to love my husband. That was my plan, and I had full intentions of sticking to it. He found you. William sighed across the kitchen table, as if he felt my relief. I was in the green room, thumbing through folders and binders on my bookshelf. He found me, I said, pulling a tattered file down from the shelf. What did you say? William asked. When you told him, what did you do? Smiling, I dropped the file down onto the table in front of him and raided the coffee pot. Why don't you see for yourself? I said, pouring myself a fresh cup. What is this? He asked, taking up the file. That? I asked, watching William untwist the string that bound the folder closed. That is every conversation I had with Hosea in 2008. William's hand froze on the documents. You saved them. I added my cream and sugar and settled myself back at the table with my cup. I had lived almost 11 years without him, I said. In those 11 years, I collected every letter, every artifact I could find of his. The ring he gave me, broken and lost. The letter we shared, I gave them all to Hosea before he left so Scott wouldn't find them. My journal, Hosea had that too. I was left with nothing when I lost Hosea, so yes, I saved every word he and I shared that first time we spoke all those years ago. Knock yourself out. I watched William pick up the papers from across the table and opened them. 21 November 2008. Glared at the top of the first page. Elizabeth. The question you asked me yesterday. Ask me. Hosea. I'm avoiding this. Elizabeth. I know. We have for nearly 11 years, and perhaps that is why this is so difficult. So I am waiting. Hosea. I love you, and always will. I'm sorry. I just couldn't tell you truly back then. It was cowardly of me because I thought you would be stubborn and not listen, and you wouldn't have. Elizabeth. No, I wouldn't have, and I'm still waiting for the question. Hosea. Do you still love me? Elizabeth. Yes. Hosea. I'm sorry. Elizabeth. Don't say that again. Now, the question. Ask. Why? Why did you cut me off? What was the last thing you remember? The last time we spoke? You mean yesterday? No. Or way back? I mean 10 years ago. Hosea, I've erased part of my memories from that time period. It hurt too much. Sorry. Please don't apologize. You'd started going out with Jade. You'd been online chatting with me, and we were sharing the keyboard. At times I couldn't tell which of you was which. At one point you had surrendered the keyboard. I think you left the kitchen or something, and Jade and I chatted. She said some things that really hurt. Hosea, I have zero memory of this. What did she say? Elizabeth, I was convinced for years that it had been you. Now I know it was her. She didn't know what you were to me. Oh, she knew. I didn't hide it. And she said some things that were cruel. It hurt, and I thought it was you trying to get rid of me, so I left. I was angry and jealous. Hosea, Elizabeth, I know that now. I was so jealous. There was no closure. It wasn't me. And then I moved. My mom had no computer. It wasn't me. I couldn't find you. There was never any closure. It was eating me alive. You never wrote me. I didn't know why. I did. I wrote to your grandparents' house. The letters came back undeliverable. I tried for 2 years to find you. When I found Richard, I had a similar connection with him. I wasn't going to let that go again. Hosea, good God, has this gone to hell quick? I thought you'd blocked me because you found someone else and didn't have the heart to tell me. Elizabeth, I never had answers. I never had closure. It was hell. Diamond Gold will do that to you. Richard held me as I cried over you for nearly 5 years. I meant it when I said he knows. I just never got closure. I never knew. Hosea, but I didn't. I wouldn't. It wasn't me! Elizabeth, it was such hell, and I realized it wasn't fair to Richard. You'd promised me 20 years. It was eating me alive. I was trying to get over you, so I blocked you to help. I understand. Elizabeth, I wondered if you knew. At the time, I didn't think you would care. It took me a long time to stop dreaming about you. Only 2 years ago, the shadows in my dreams stopped. And the diamond gold was, well, let's just say it became bearable. The worst part was not knowing, not having that closure. Hosea, well, now we both know. William set the file on the table. What's wrong? I asked over my cup of coffee. He politely pushed the file toward me. This is private. I chuckled. It's all private. Isn't that what you wanted? To know what made me tick? William suddenly perked up and looked around my cottage as if seeing something wasn't there for the first time. Like he had visited me many times and only just now noticed a large piece of furniture was missing. Where is Hosea? I set my cup to the table and pressed a hand to my mouth, supported by an elbow on the table. My finger tapped my lip while I mustered the nerve to proceed with the conversation. He isn't here, I said. William looked around the room as if to see if I was serious. What happened? He asked. My dear friend, I sadly smiled. I am broken.